When you think about taking down the mafia, whether it's the Cosa Nostra, the Ndrangheta, or the Camorra, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
For most people, it's the big headlines, right? The massive drug busts, billions in assets being frozen, or a dramatic arrest of some top boss who's been on the run for decades.
Exactly. Those are the big, splashy victories.
Hmm.
But what if those victories are, well, only temporary?
That's the core of what we're digging into today. The real profound challenge lies so much deeper. It isn't just a law enforcement problem. It's really a crisis of childhood, of family, of
You're
identity.
talking about the pipeline.
I am. The most enduring asset these criminal groups have isn't their money or their weapons. It's their ability to reproduce themselves generation after generation through blood and indoctrination.
Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive. We've got an incredible stack of sources here that look at this from a perspective you almost never see, the human cost inside the family.
We're going to explore the psychology of children raised inside these clans, the incredibly complex and often tragic roles that women play, and then, and this is the hopeful part, the groundbreaking legal interventions that are trying to finally break that cycle.
And our source material it's really something else. We have empirical research, actual interviews with so-called mafia children,
Which are incredibly hard to get. We also have deep legal analysis of gender dynamics and then detailed reports on Italy's big new program, Free to Choose.
and running through all of it is this one agonizing conflict, this tension that defines every single person born into this world.
It's the security of the family clan, which one source calls an island of archaic, deadly values, versus the potential for a normal life, for individual autonomy offered by the outside world.
It's literally a fight for the soul of the next generation. So let's start there. Let's start with the kids.
To really get it, you have to start with the data. We're looking at an incredibly important psychological study, one that managed to get access to a world that is, by definition, closed off.
The children of Cosa Nostra members. Now, it was a small sample, right? Just 11 subjects.
11, yes. But the way they analyze the data is key. They use something called the grounded theory method.
Okay, so for those of us who aren't research scientists, why is that so important here? Why that method?
Well, because grounded theory is designed for when you don't want to bring your own biases to the table. I mean, if you go in thinking you know what a criminal mind looks like, you're going to miss everything.
You'll just find what you're looking for.
Precisely. This method lets the subject's own words, their own experiences, build the theory from the ground up. It lets their reality, not some academic checklist, shape the findings.
That makes so much sense, especially for a culture built on silence, on omerta. And the researchers did something really smart. They split the group by age.
Yes, a younger group, ages 17 to 28, and an older group, from 39 to 62. And that comparison is where things get really fascinating.
Because it revealed this massive division in how they see the world.
A huge division, yeah. Across three specific areas. First, their family, and especially their father. Second, society and their friends. And third, the mafia itself, the organization's values.
So let's start with the younger guys, the 17 to 28-year-olds. Their take is, honestly, it's kind of shocking. They see the Cosa Nostra as an absolutely distant phenomenon,
They use the words totally alien. They see themselves as completely separate from that world.
which feels like a huge cultural shift. I mean, that's a good thing, isn't it? They're rejecting the family business.
It is a good thing on the surface.
Mm-hmm.
It suggests the brand, the lifestyle, has lost its appeal for them. Maybe it's state pressure, maybe it's the internet, better education. Whatever it is, they don't want to step into their father's shoes.
Brah, there's always a but.
There's always a but. Here's where it gets so complex and, frankly, heartbreaking. Even though they reject the organization, they almost never offer any strong criticism of their families or of their father's actual crimes.
So they can separate the crime from the criminal?
They perform this incredible feat of psychological gymnastics. They push the mafia away as this external evil thing, but they pull the family, the person of the father, even closer to protect him.
Wow. It's a kind of cognitive dissonance, right? To let them keep loving a parent who is, I mean, by any normal standard, a monster.
It's a survival mechanism.
Yeah.
And you can see how devastating that internal war must be day to day. The study shares some quotes from the interviews that they really hit you.
Like the subject who said she loved her father but just wished for a normal situation.
As every daughter wishes.
Mm-hmm.
And she talked about the small things, the constant grinding absence. She said, it isn't nice to see your classmates with their daddy and you always without, even on Sundays.
It's not the shootouts, it's missing a Sunday lunch. That's what hurts, the yearning for the completely ordinary.
Exactly. But here's another twist. For some of them, that absence, especially when the father was in prison, it actually brought them closer.
Wait, how does that work?
Well, think about it. The prison walls stripped away the business, the violence, the secrets, the constant coming and going.
All the stuff that makes him a boss.
Right. And what's left in those limited prison visits or censored letters is just Dad. They discovered a more intimate human side of him they never knew. So paradoxically, the prison sometimes created a more genuine relationship.
But the flip side of that life is sudden violent loss. There's the story of the 11-year-old girl.
Yeah. She came home from school, finds her mother and aunt screaming and crying. Her older brother just holds her and tells her her father is dead. She described the pain as just too great to even accept.
That kind of trauma, that forced silence,
Yeah,
it has to cripple your ability to form your own identity.
it does. Historically, many kids just passively accepted what the family taught them, and that blocks this crucial developmental stage where you figure out who you are. The danger is you stay entangled in a world that was already thought for him or her by others. You never develop your own moral compass.
So the family is this closed island. How does the outside world even begin to break through?
The research is very clear on this. Peers, friends, other kids who aren't in the life.
They're the bridge to the mainland.
A perfect way to put it. They introduce modern values, different rules. They're how a teenager learns to navigate a normal, functioning society. It's the standard path to becoming your own person.
But the mafia families have to see that as a direct threat.
A massive threat. They actively forbid their children from forming real, deep bonds with outsiders. Because their archaic values, silence, honor, revenge, are fundamentally at war with the modern values of other teens, like individualism, equality, open communication. They need to keep their kids isolated to maintain control.
Okay, let's go back to that generational divide. The older group, the guys aged 39 to 62, their view is totally different, right? Much less conflicted.
Night and day. The research mapped out their views, and for them, the father is, without question, a criminal figure. And when they talk about the human aspect of the mafia, the words they use are things like not human, tyrant.
No more romanticism.
None. They focus on the real results. Blood, misery, arrogance, and the endless cycle of revenge. After decades of living with the consequences, they see it for what it is.
Which brings us to the famous code of honor. This is the bedrock of the whole system. The source highlights a Sicilian expression that sums it all up. Nudu amiscatu cunenti.
It translates roughly to nobody mixed up with nothing, but its meaning is, it's just devastating.
What does it mean in that context?
It's used to describe someone who counts for nothing, someone with no honor, no standing, and according to that code, someone who doesn't deserve to live. It's the ultimate social death sentence. It's how the hierarchy of violence is justified.
So the researchers use this phrase as a kind of litmus test.
Exactly, to see if the subject still bought into this brutal worldview. And the older generation's response is, well, it's a huge sign of hope.
What do they say?
They despise it. They actively hate anyone who still agrees with that expression. They were passionate in the interviews, saying that people's dignity can't be trampled, that respect for others is a universal value.
So they've fully broken with the ideology.
Completely. It shows a profound critical distance from the mafia's core belief system. While they might still have complex feelings about their father as a person, they are defining their own morality based on universal human dignity. That's the autonomy the family tried so hard to prevent. It's a slow, painful process, but it's happening.
And that transition leads us straight to the women, the ones who are tasked with upholding the system, or sometimes with tearing it down.
You can't understand the children's world without understanding the women. The mothers, wives, sisters, they are navigating this unbelievably restrictive, terrifying landscape.
Because at their core, these organizations are intensely patriarchal. They cling to this traditional ideology, silence, honor, vendetta, even while they're running modern global criminal businesses.
It's a strange fusion, isn't it? An archaic social structure managing a high-tech portfolio. And that structure enforces extreme, often deadly control over women. The Ndrangheta is singled out for being particularly brutal.
There's a literal death penalty for women who deviate.
A death penalty, yes,
Right.
for having an affair, or, and this is the cardinal sin, for talking to the police.
And these honor killings aren't just about punishment, they're a message.
They are a public performance. It's about violently restoring the family's reputation and showing the entire community the organization's absolute power. The woman's body becomes a billboard for male power and control. It's horrific.
And within this system, a woman's value is almost entirely tied to one thing.
Motherhood. Specifically, giving birth to sons who can carry on the family name and the family business.
So womanhood on its own is basically worthless.
Is viewed with contempt. So women feel this immense pressure to overemphasize their role as mothers. It's the only way they can gain any real status or respect within the clan.
And what's so tragic is how that gets passed down. The cycle just continues.
It's a self-perpetuating system. The sources are clear that mothers, having internalized these toxic, misogynistic values, are the ones who teach them to their own children. They teach their daughters that women are inferior, and they teach their sons to see women as untrustworthy, unless they're a mother or a sister who plays by the rules.
It sounds like a picture of total oppression. But then, when the men go to prison, the women suddenly get power, or a version of it.
That's the great paradox. When the boss is incarcerated, out of sheer necessity, women are trusted to step up and maintain continuity. The wife often becomes the long manus,
The long arm.
the long arm of her husband. She's the one passing his messages, relaying his orders, maybe managing some of the lower-level rackets. It's a kind of delegated agency, all happening within the margins he allows.
But sometimes that agency becomes much more direct, even violent.
It can. Some women will actively engage in extortion or racketeering, using their status as the boss's wife or mother to project power. But even more disturbingly, some become instigators of vendetta.
They're the ones demanding blood.
Yes. We have documented cases of women who, after a murder, will block any attempt at peace or reconciliation. They'll demand the feud continue, sometimes saying it must last until the seventh generation.
The source mentions one specific chilling case.
A woman whose 3 sons were killed. Her grief just twisted into this engine of pure revenge. She actively helped relatives who were carrying out revenge killings and was even caught burning their bloody clothes in an oven to destroy the evidence. Her motherhood became a justification for perpetuating violence.
Let's talk about their role as criminal assets, where their subordinate status is actually a strategic advantage for the clan. The source calls it compliant agency.
This is a long-standing tactic. Women have always been used as couriers for drugs, weapons, cash, because they were seen as less suspicious. For decades, police were just less likely to body search a woman at a checkpoint.
And the examples are incredible. They show how this has evolved over time.
They really do. I mean, it goes back to the early 20th century with women called feminote who smuggled salt from Sicily to Calabria under these huge, wide black skirts.
And then fast forward to the 1980s.
To the Cosa Nostra flying housewives from poor Palermo neighborhoods to New York. They were taping tailor-made bags of heroin to their bodies and then dousing themselves in perfume to try and fool the sniffer dogs. Their non-threatening appearance was the perfect camouflage.
And it seems a lot of these women got into the life not out of ambition, but desperation.
That's a key point. Many joined because of extreme financial needs. They saw an illegal way to close the gap between what society expected of them, to provide for their family, and the complete lack of legal opportunities.
And even in the criminal world, they were undervalued.
The sources indicate they were sometimes paid less than men for doing the exact same risky work. It just reflects their vulnerable position all around.
But the ultimate act of agency, the final break, is to become a pentito, a state collaborator.
And that journey is described as just unbelievably difficult, rough, solitary. It requires this radical act of self-definition because you're not just betraying an organization, you're often betraying your own brothers, your father, your cousins. Especially in a group like the Ndrangheta, where the family and the clan are the same thing.
The case of Rosa N. shows this internal conflict so vividly. She felt dead without her old life, but kept forcing herself to say she'd make the clean choice again.
Her psychology is fascinating. The source says she had 2 names she used. When she was angry or regretting her choice, she'd use her real birth name.
The name from her past life.
Right. But when she felt positive, focused on her future, her second life, she would use the new name the state gave her. It's like she had this verbal split personality to manage the 2 worlds fighting inside her.
And she missed the money, the fur coats. But she said it was all worthless.
Not worth anything, was her quote. Not compared to a genuine caress from her mother or her children. She was trading material wealth for emotional truth.
And that seems to be the ultimate leverage, the thing that finally pushes women to break away: motherhood.
It is the most powerful catalyst. We have the story of a woman who actually retracted her testimony at first. She couldn't handle the pressure. But then she saw what her children were becoming inside the clan.
And she went back to the police.
She went back and asked to be put back into the protection program. The reason was explicit. to save her children from a mafia education. That maternal instinct was stronger than her fear of death, stronger than her loyalty to the clan. It's the ultimate trump card.
And that decision, a mother choosing her child's future over the clan, that's the exact moment the state has to be ready to step in.
Which brings us to Italy's most radical strategy yet: direct intervention to protect the children.
We're talking about the Free to Choose program. It was launched in Calabria back in 2012 by the Justice Ministry, and its goal is just. It's incredibly bold.
It's radical. The explicit goal is to remove children from mafia families and place them in foster care or protected homes to decisively break that transgenerational criminal cycle.
And we have to be clear about what they're trying to prevent. This isn't about kids shoplifting.
No, you have the head of Italy's Anti-Mafia Commission on record saying there are children being taught to shoot at 8 years old. There are children dealing crack at 8 years old.
And worse.
Much worse. The sources cite cases of children being forced by their own families to murder their mothers to defend the family honor after the mother tried to collaborate.
At that point, you can't talk about parental rights. The state has an absolute obligation to act.
It does. And the program is seen as so vital that it's now being expanded from Calabria to Sicily, to fight Cosa Nostra, and to Naples, the home of the Camorra. It's a national strategy now.
But it's also deeply controversial. Removing a child from their family, that's a huge step.
A monumental step. And the criticism was immediate and harsh. Some detractors, including some clergy, called it a Nazi-like method, or an attempt to deport children.
So how does the state justify this legally?
The legal foundation is the principle of minimal invasiveness. The court's action is seen as an act of protection, not punishment for the parents' crimes.
So a judge can't take your kids just because you're a mafioso?
Absolutely not. The law is very specific. The court can only intervene in cases of documented intrafamily pathologies, violence, abuse, or any clear injury to a child's mental or physical development. The judge is overriding parental authority only when that authority is actively harming the child's fundamental rights.
Okay, let's go back to those collaborating mothers. Even if they get their kids into a program like Free to Choose, they themselves are still in incredible danger.
And they face this huge bureaucratic nightmare. The core problem is traceability.
Because they can't change their names.
Not easily.
Yeah.
So every time they try to build a normal life, get a job, open a bank account, sign a lease, they create a paper trail that can be traced. Their attempt to gain freedom actually puts them back in the crosshairs.
So the law needs to catch up to protect them.
It has to. There's a draft law in the works to fix this, to establish a national system for providing cover identities, security, and surveillance for these mothers and children on the run. Because, as one advocate said, having the chance to earn money is their way to freedom. Without a secure identity, that freedom is an illusion.
Once a child is removed, the goal isn't just to keep them safe. It's about rehabilitation. The sources call it transformative learning.
This is a huge pedagogical challenge. You're not just teaching them math and history. You are actively trying to deprogram years of toxic ideology.
You're teaching them how to think for themselves.
Exactly. The goal is to foster critical reflectivity, autonomous thinking, using things like group projects, case studies, role-playing, anything to get them to critically assess the new democratic values they're being taught and compare them to the clan's dogma they were raised on. It's about replacing passive acceptance with active critical inquiry.
And this challenge is being tackled with some very specialized juvenile justice models. Let's talk about the Italian system's cornerstone, the messa alla prova.
This is a form of procedural probation for adolescents, and it's totally different from the adult version. It's super flexible and used a lot in the South, in Camorra and in Ndrangheta territory, even for kids who have committed very serious crimes.
And the goal is recovery, not punishment.
100%. It allows the teenager to build a new, positive sense of belonging that's in direct opposition to their clan identity. They're given community service, educational tasks, things that force them to operate in a moral universe that isn't the one they came from.
The source mentions the context in Naples, where judges see this social decay, this utter void where kids have no alternatives.
And in that void, the messa alla prova is a chance to plant a seed of something positive. The absence of beauty, as they call it, meaning real friendships, respect, solidarity, is what drives kids to crime. This program tries to introduce them to that beauty.
And it works. The kids who go through it talk about it like a new birth.
They do. They talk about finding hope, freedom. One said the positive influence of his supervisor was a seed that will grow later. It's planting the idea that a different life is actually possible.
Now let's look at another model for comparison, this time from Brazil. They use restorative justice.
Restorative justice is a total paradigm shift. The goal isn't just to punish the offender, it's to make them understand the consequences of what they did and develop empathy.
How do they do that?
Mostly through something called the circle process, where the offender meets with the victim, or representatives of the victim. And this is key. It can even be used when the victim is the whole community.
Like in a hate crime.
Exactly. If a kid commits a racially motivated crime, a representative from that community might sit in the circle. The offender is forced to hear directly how their actions cause pain and fear to a whole group of people. It's about collective accountability, not just individual punishment.
Brazil also has this administrative practice, the concentrated hearing. It sounds logistical, but it's more than that.
It's a model of state accountability, and it's brilliant. For a single case, they get everyone in one room. The judge, the prosecutor, the child, the family, and representatives from every single relevant public service.
Housing, education, healthcare.
All of them. The goal is to create an individual care plan for the child, but also, and this is so important, to make sure the state is doing its job. It prevents the criminalization of poverty by forcing the government to address the root causes, the lack of housing, the bad schools that led the kid to crime in the first place.
It holds the whole system accountable, not just the child.
Exactly.
And all of these systems, whether in Italy or Brazil, they only work if you see the child as a person with rights, not just a product of their environment.
That is the fundamental principle. It's grounded in international law and Article 12 of the Convention on the Rights of the Child.
The right to be heard.
The right to be heard. Any child who can form an opinion has the right to express it in any legal proceeding that affects them. And their opinion has to be given adequate weight based on their age and maturity.
And there's no fixed age limit for that. An 8-year-old in a mafia family might have a very mature, very important opinion.
They might have a level of maturity that would shock you, born from the trauma they've witnessed. Their voice has to be heard.
But a courtroom is a terrifying place for a kid.
It's intimidating. It's hostile. So the process itself can't cause more trauma. That's why there's a movement to make justice friendly.
And Argentina has a fantastic, simple example of how to do this.
It's just a great idea. When a child is called to a hearing, the family court sends them a little book called Mi Audiencia, My Hearing.
And what's in the book?
It's a playful, simple guide that explains the whole thing. Why they're there, who the judge is, who the lawyers are, what's going to happen. It demystifies the whole process.
So the kid walks in prepared, not terrified.
Exactly. It turns a potentially hostile experience into a friendly one, which means the child is much more likely to actually be able to exercise their right to be heard.
Beyond the legal system, though, there's this profound human need for connection, especially for kids who end up in institutional care. Brazil has a model for this, too. Effective sponsorship.
Or apadrinamiento efectivo. It's a program for kids and teenagers who are unlikely to ever be adopted. The goal is to give them that right to family and community life by connecting them with a committed adult mentor, a godparent.
And these godparents aren't looking to adopt, they're just there to be a stable presence.
A stable, caring presence. And if you want to know how much that means, you just have to read the letters the kids write about the program. It's incredibly moving.
They're not asking for presents.
Not at all. A 13-year-old wrote that he wanted a godparent to help me in all types of difficulties and teach me new things. And then he added, I am not interested in gifts, only in the presence of that godparent.
Another one wrote about just wanting someone to talk to unburden myself as if it were a mother and aunt, since I don't have anyone.
It shows you that the deepest void in their lives is the lack of a reliable emotional connection. The clan, for all its toxicity, provided a twisted sense of belonging. This program provides a healthy one. It shows them the benefit of being somebody for somebody else.
And it has a real impact on their confidence.
A measurable impact. The source tells the story of a godparent who taught a 13-year-old boy named V how to read. And the joy V found wasn't just in the reading itself. It was that he gained enough confidence to learn the city bus routes and travel to his own appointments all by himself. That little act of autonomy is a physical manifestation of the psychological freedom we've been talking about this whole time.
So we've covered this incredible, painful journey, from the archaic codes of honor inside the family, through the conflicted minds of the children, all the way to these modern, complex legal tools designed to offer them a second life.
And that core tension is still there. The immense power of the kinship bond is what makes a group like the Ndrangheta so successful on a global scale. It's perfectly adapted for international markets. But that's also their greatest vulnerability, the women and children caught between that loyalty and the possibility of a different life.
It's so clear that the front lines in the war on organized crime have shifted. It's not just in the streets or the banks anymore. The real battle is in the family home and the juvenile courtroom.
That's it, exactly. Well, the mafias adapt, using women for smuggling, grooming the next generation for cybercrime. The most profound long-term attack against them is to save their most vulnerable members. Programs like Free to Choose, backed by the principles we see in Brazil, they represent a strategic shift that targets the inheritance of trauma itself.
So, if we start to see the right to a normal, safe childhood as the most precious asset we can confiscate from a clan, what does that mean for justice systems everywhere facing these kinds of problems?
Well, that's the final thought for you to chew on. The most effective, if most challenging, strategy against organized crime might not be seizing assets or arresting bosses. It might be the systematic long-term intervention to save the youngest generation. How can our legal systems better integrate psychological transformation, rehabilitative justice, and a child's own voice into these battles? Because this isn't just an Italian problem. It's a challenge for any society where criminal groups rely on the generational transfer of fear, power, and trauma to survive.